Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
If you don't have your life in order, what happens on screens accelerates the negative. But if you do have your life in order, it actually amplifies and benefits the positive.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
G'day, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about making families happy and the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. Oh, and the co-host and parenting expert on the Channel 9 television show Parental Guidance. I'm here with Kylie, who is pretending not to be sick. How's that going for you?
I'm just plodding along. You're going to have to listen to my manly voice today because I don't really have much of one, but we'll get through it.
Okay, well, you're smiling at the moment. That's the main thing. Last night, Parental Guidance. This is the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now, and we need some answers about parental guidance. So many things to talk about. 5 new families, 5 new parenting styles. We've got Kevin and Debbie, our tiger parents. They've got some personality, haven't they? I love them in the car. The way
She is hilarious.
But I can't find the same road as 2 on 5.
No, you can. Look for big roads.
Can you see that? Can you see a Pacific Highway? Can you see Pacific Highway?
I know.
It is a big road.
She didn't tell us which way to turn. You cannot drive like this. Come on, pull over. I drive. You direct her, okay?
Just give me a little bit of time. Give me a little bit of time. Mimi.
No, let me drive.
and then we've got we've got Penny and Daniel, our free-range parents. Could they be any different to the tiger parents?
As free-range parents, we're always getting them to work out a solution for themselves.
We'll just wait here until you let us know which way to go.
The kids have never used a map, but I'm confident they'll find a way to fix that problem.
All right, mate. Look out the window and tell me which way you want me to go.
Dad, go forward.
Thank you. He's the best.
So relaxed, aren't they? They're just so relaxed. I love when their 7-year-old was in the car.
Julian.
And he literally just went,
We're taking you to the middle of nowhere, buddy.
It's just been a fun show. Some pretty serious stuff came up as well, though, last night. There's Rob and Sue, who said that they washed their kids' mouth out with soap. Obviously, they've only done it once or twice, so let's not pretend that it's happening on a daily basis. But that definitely got people focused on the whole discipline thing.
I have to admit, I was really, really shocked that still is something that happens. I mean, in my day, that was a given.
In your day.
And it was not on the toothbrush. It was a whole cake of soap in your mouth.
Oh, my goodness.
But
Did that ever happen to you?
No, I don't think it happened to
All
me.
right, but it was just a story that you heard. I've heard. I'd never met anyone who'd actually done it until Rob and Sue said that they'd done it to their kids.
Yeah, I'm just in today's day and age, I was really shocked.
But the big issue that came up last night that I think we've really got to spend some time talking about is this issue of screens. I mean, we talk about screens all the time, but didn't the 24-hour screen time ban just blow up for some families?
Let's start with Rach and Sam.
Okay, give me all the remotes.
Els, one day, don't be silly.
2 young kids, pretty miserable. They just want to be able to enjoy their screens, and no screens for 24 hours. When you're that age, when you're 5 years old, it feels like forever because 24 hours, it doesn't actually make sense.
Well, it was taken out of their control, though. There was no autonomy around the decision. It was just literally landed on their doorstep. Not only that...
And no transition time.
There was no transition time.
Yeah, no time to prepare and get our head around it. It's like, all right, here's the challenge.
So their response was totally typical of that age group.
And we saw the same thing happen with Julian, Penny and Daniel's 7-year-old son.
As a free-range parents, this challenge is going to be a real tricky one. We've never had rules around devices.
This is the worst day.
Pay each play $50.
What? This is even worse. Friday? Sorry. We're getting worse.
Do you want a cuddle?
No, I don't want to have such a bad day.
If you need a cuddle, I'm right here.
He is such a classic.
He's a funny kid. Great kid. Just
so funny. They literally, I would like to be a fly on the wall and watch him in a day.
So I want to talk about the different approaches of all of these families, but first let's have a look at what happened when Rob and Sue told their boys, Fletch and Hudson, that there were no screens for 24 hours.
All right, well, let's put these away, shall we? Say bye. Bye.
6 hours in. Relaxing, actually. I'm enjoying it. I think we've got this. Go, Rosie!
Razzie's going good. He never has technology, actually.
Oh, what's that? It's a ferret.
I just love how screens they don't even play a part in their lives.
So easy. Let's go and hang out outside just like that. Kevin and Debbie, our tiger parents, with their 2 kids. I mean, just before we talk about what they did with the screens, how funny was it when they had to do the whole stranger danger? They're going and doing their first errand and
the conversation they were having on the side of the road.
Leo's like, I'll just kick them. I've got fists of steel.
Are you nervous? We have to go buy milk ourselves.
No, I'm not nervous. My hand packs a very good punch.
But anyway, in terms of the way they do, it's so funny. So we were laughing so hard when we saw it for the first time in the studio with the families. But their response to no screens for 24 hours sounded like this.
No screen time for 24 hours.
No screen time at all.
We have set this boundary quite early, and now they know they need to kind of earn their screen time. I have no doubt Mimi and Leo, they won't feel much about it.
What do we do during this time, Ben?
You just read a book.
As a compensation, you get a gummy bear each.
You don't need to be compensated for
Not too many.
And lastly,
the one that I think really impacted a lot of people for the same reason, because we've all felt this, whether it's been about screens or other parenting issues, was Deb, single mum, homeschooling her kids, and this is how her teenagers responded.
I'd like you to think about your reaction and what that means. Putting a piece of plastic before real life relationships is the reaction of an addict.
What do you mean real life relationships? I spend time with you guys all the time. I was like, what do you want me to do?
I'm asking for your family. Would you accept a challenge for 24 hours? You're saying you're not addicted, but you can't go 24 hours without it. That's an addict. I'm not having a 17-year-old addicted to a phone.
I'm not addicted.
I'm struggling to hold back the disappointment that I feel.
so that was pretty heavy. And you can see that, like, the different approaches, right? Everyone who's got young kids, they needed some transition time. They didn't get it. The kids were upset. That's pretty standard. You'd expect that whether it was television or anything. If you tell the kids they've got to give something up and they don't understand why and they've got to do it for a day, no transition, boom, you're going to get that explosiveness. But where it gets really interesting is the age of the kids and what they're using their devices for. And Deb has had this really big reaction from her eldest, Jess, because she's a teenager. She's 17. And
her phone is her world.
Her phone is her world. Now, once upon a time, I would have said, isn't that sad? But the world's changed since then. And that is actually the reality. Her phone is her world. And I don't think we can go crook on our teenagers, a 17-year-old, for feeling like that, because especially as a homeschool kid, that's how she communicates with everyone. It's the social outlet. And it's so important. But Deb,
I feel like a failure.
I feel like a failure. But basically everyone's got a different approach when it comes to screens. No matter how many different conversations we have on the podcast about it, everyone does it differently. Penny and Daniel, no limits, no rules, just no worries, kids. Although I reckon that they still would have some rules. Rob and Sue, by the way, very, very disciplined. The rules matter when it comes to screens, and we need to talk about that. Let's talk about why that matters and what boundaries we could be setting right after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Are screens creating tension at home? Tweens, Teens and Screens is a webinar to guide families to healthy, safe super screen solutions. Buy it today at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And I've almost reached my end.
It's really hard doing it. Do you want me to just do all the talking for the second half? Would that be helpful? You just looked at your face. You try to put a smile on your face. Podcasting when you're not feeling well is not the best idea. So let's talk about getting things right. What I noticed, Kylie, with the conversation about screens, which really did dominate the show last night, was you've got Rob and Sue, who are really, as school teachers, they're saying we've seen the problems that happen. We're trying to balance safety, because kids can get up to some no good stuff on screens, and screens can be dangerous. But also, Rob and Sue are really trying to give their kids exposure to a full and balanced life. I mean, they want...
Well, they look like they don't live in suburbia,
no,
for starters.
They live in the beautiful Barossa in South Australia.
And so they've intentionally made decisions that have, for all intents and purposes, squashed screens.
Squashed screens.
Squashed screens and the need for them. Yeah. And these kids are not missing out.
No, not at all. No.
Then you have Daniel and Penny, who's literally... this free-range style of parenting allows their children to have screens at their fingertips whenever they want.
Right.
But in saying all of that, like you said, there must be some rules. Like we've only seen snippets of their life.
Penny and Daniel as well. They use screens to connect. Like they're actually spending time together. But yeah, I mean we've got to get this balance right. When we look at the research, in fact, a brand new study. I literally just had this land in my email in the last couple of days. Really, it captured my attention. This is a study that has come from the UK, and it investigated 40,000 gamers, and what they found in a nutshell is that time spent playing video games doesn't really impact in any way, shape or form well-being. There's just no impact on well-being. Now, there's a few issues with this study. The first one is that the average age of the gamer was 34. So, well, because grown-ups play games more than kids these days. But basically, playing games isn't affecting well-being, not nearly as much as missing out on sleep or not eating well or not moving your body or not catching up with people. So if you can live a whole and balanced life, then playing games or being on screens or even catching up with your friends on social media is not going to have any significant ramifications on your well-being.
But the reason these become a problem is because people can't moderate it.
That's exactly right. So if you don't have your life in order, then what happens on screens accelerates the negative. But if you do have your life in order, it actually amplifies and benefits the positive. So what our job as parents is to be aware of the risks, okay? So there's safety risks, there's identity risks, there's explicit material risks, and there's the risk that the screen can become the focus of our lives to the point where, or our children's lives to the point where they no longer do the stuff that matters, like moving their bodies, catching up with friends, playing their musical instruments, enjoying their other pursuits, and spending time around the dinner table or the games table with their family. But if we can get the boundaries right, then they can use screens in happy, healthy ways. Oh, by the way, one other really quick point that's worth highlighting. Most of the families have got young kids. So they're not using screens the same way that Deb's children as teenagers are using their screens. I do need to highlight one other thing as well, and that is that one of the biggest risks that I'm seeing as I'm talking with families and getting feedback from schools is that children from around about the age of 9 and 10 now are getting caught up in some of the most hideous. I can't even begin to tell you how hideous the content is that they're sharing with one another, the things that they're saying to one another in chats and messages and on Snapchat and in their various social media platforms that they shouldn't even be on. So there are risks, and we need to make sure that our kids are okay. So setting boundaries is what this is really all about.
So where would you start if you have screens in your home and there haven't been any boundaries, or you haven't been successful in setting boundaries for your family?
Well, I heard Dr. Lisa D'Amour say this the other day, and she's so right, and I want to emphasize it because it was so well said. She basically said when you're setting boundaries with your kids, whether you're doing a reset or starting all over, you start really strong, because from that point, you're going to consistently cede territory as your child gets older. Like wherever you put that flag in the ground, you can guarantee that the tide's going to come in and knock the flag over, and you're going to have to keep on putting it in further and further and further out. So I would say that for younger kids, set the boundaries really clearly. We don't have screens except for these times, or we've got to do all of these other things first. Be really, really clear about that. Get things in order at the outset, and that will help you to move things along. But do it in an empowering way. What do you think? How are we going to work this out together? Guide your children through the process rather than autocratically saying, it's my way or the highway. This is what's going to happen.
So one of the things that we've done to kind of, I guess, introduce screens and then kind of work through the rules with our kids is we've had a family device.
Yes.
So, our 10-year-old doesn't have her own device. And I think that sometimes parents are giving children devices
way too early.
Yeah,
which brings up another question: at what age? And I would just say delay. But there's a caveat around this as well, and that is that there comes a time when not having a device becomes a bigger problem than having a device. Once your kids are at a point where they're being excluded, because when kids are organising something on Instagram, in their Instagram chat, if somebody's not in there, they don't think, oh, by the way, we should just send a text message to their mum and make sure that their mum invites them to come and do this with it. Like 12-year-olds aren't thinking about that. 13-year-olds aren't thinking about that. Not that 12-year-olds should be on Instagram, by the way. But there comes a point where the social benefits of having the device outweigh the negatives around risk and other concerns. So we've watched it happen around about the age of 13 to 14. In our experience has been the kids they start to miss out at that point, and I think that it's worth them having one then. But that's where you say, if we give you this, there are times and places for it and times and places not for it. So it's an absolute no-no for bedtime or in the bedroom.
Or at the dinner table. That's my other big one. Or in the car. Or in a family outing.
Yeah. So when we're having family time, there are no devices. And I'd probably keep it pretty simple like that, and then just monitor from a timing point of view, monitor the content, have the conversations, and go from there. And I think that those kinds of guidelines are probably going to keep most parents out of trouble most of the time.
So is there anything else that you would suggest to parents to help them with boundary setting?
I think the most important thing is to work it out with your kids. Sit down and say, we don't really know what the right answers are here. Like, be a little bit vulnerable with them. This is tricky. We know that you've got preferences. You know that we've got preferences. So what are we going to do about it? And hand over the power to them, not to make the final decision, but to have a really strong voice in this and listen to them. But also be really, really clear. Whatever we're paying for this device, it's ours. And with the guidelines that we're writing down and agreeing to, if you don't adhere to them, we've got to work out what's going to happen as a result. And while my preference is that we don't punish our kids and we don't take privileges off them and all that kind of thing, eventually they've got to know that if they keep doing the wrong thing, that they might lose the device for a couple of days or for a week or for a month, because they've got to do the right thing.
One of the conversations that we have had regularly with our children that I think has been really powerful is kind of helping them to take a little bit of perspective. And so when they've come to us and said, hey, Dad, I really want to download Snapchat because all my friends are using it, we've kind of asked them to step into our shoes. What if your child came to you and asked you that? You're obviously navigating the space already. You've seen it, seen what's happening, where the dangers are. How would you respond if your child came?
It's a favourite. And the kids usually give us really sensible answers. Every now and then they're like, just let them do whatever they want. But when they're not emotional, we get really good responses from them. Hey, guess what? I think you made it. Let's wrap this up. Parental Guidance is back on the telly again tonight. Can't wait to see the next lot of challenges. We're going to have some really cool things to talk about tomorrow, including how far you should push your kids. That's coming up on the Happy Families podcast tomorrow. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And if you'd like more info about how to make your family happier, including our amazing Happy Families memberships, where we support you because a happy family doesn't just happen, please visit happyfamilies.com.au.